家好，我叫韦美琳，或是美丽娜，来自德国。在这视频中，我想要分享一下我学习汉语的故事。我会告诉你们我为什么开始学习中文，我在中国生活的经历，以及我所面临的挑战。It all starts in Malaysia. When I was a teenager, I had difficulties learning foreign languages, including English. So I wanted to do a high school year abroad. So I went to a local Malaysian high school and I lived together with an Indian host family for half a year and then a Chinese host family for half a year. And what ignited my interest to study Chinese was Chinese characters. I found them really beautiful, they were very exotic to me, and I just couldn't understand how people can read such a strange thing. In the afternoon after school, I went to a center which is called YMCA and I took a Chinese business course. I was by far the youngest student because I was only 17 years old and all other people have been like 30, 40. 4 years later, I first finished high school and then I started studying international business management, and then we get Chinese as an elective in university. So I haven't spoken Chinese for 4 years. I basically forgot everything I learned before. Then one semester after that, I have the chance to finally go to China and I chose Qingdao as my destination. While I was in Qingdao, that was actually my first time being in a real Chinese-speaking environment. I could practice my Chinese when buying groceries. Well, one huge negative part was that the vast majority of my classmates were Germans. Not even English-speaking people, but Germans. So I would speak from morning to evening, I would speak a lot of German. Because I was annoyed by the fact that there were so many Germans, I actively pursued finding Chinese friends. This worked out quite well. I found two Chinese girls who I'm still in contact with. One of them even visited me once in Europe. I'm done with my semester in Qingdao and I have a couple of weeks left to do a backpacking trip through China. And before I came to China, I read a couple of books about the country, but I had no idea how rich Chinese culture actually is. So I went to Beijing, then I went to Xi'an to see the Terracotta Army, then I went to Gansu province, where you can find a lot of deserts. Then I went to Yunnan province, where I also spent 1 week together with monks. I lived in a Buddhist temple and I was practicing Kung Fu and I was helping cooking local dishes. And then I went to South China, to Guilin, and then I went to Shanghai and then I flew back to Germany. It just blew my mind how many different ethnic groups there are in China, how many different cuisines you have. If you're ever going to travel in China, I highly recommend that you buy the Lonely Planet travel guide. It was life-saving, especially when I was away from the big cities, and I will link it in everything in the description box below. You may also ask yourself at this point or throughout my whole story, how did she actually finance that? During my bachelor degree, I also did a traineeship. That's a special program that we have in South Germany. So you don't only study, but you also work half of the time. So usually I would study half a year and work half a year. And because of that, my company, I worked in a Swiss pharmaceutical company, they would pay me a regular salary. So even when I was in China, I received a monthly paycheck. After I came back to Germany, I didn't pursue to practice Chinese that much anymore because in my bachelor degree, I also had to study in English and in French and in German. It was a 3 national degree. So the pressure was already so high because I was working and studying, and I was studying in 2 other foreign languages, and especially French was really tough for me at that time. So Chinese was just not a priority of mine. 2 years later, I'm done with my bachelor degree and my traineeship, and I'm not quite sure what I should do next. I find this program in China where I can live together with a Chinese host family. In return, I should teach the child some English. The parents were really nice, but the child was kind of naughty to me. She would sometimes just take my food and throw it on the ground and give it back to me and tell her parents I damaged the food or I purposely threw it on the ground, and I couldn't defend myself because my Chinese was pretty bad. But yeah, other than that, that was quite interesting. Other than that, it was also a nice day, but overall it was really expensive and probably not worth the time and the money that I had invested. Shortly after that, I found an internship, and I was by that time particularly interested in business consulting companies. So I found an internship in Taiwan, which was perfect because I can practice Chinese and at the same time I can gain some work experience in a consulting company. The work itself was really interesting because we worked on a project together with a German automotive company. That's probably why they also hired me, because there were some stuff in German. I think I work quite well. Like, I mean, I worked a lot, and I think that the things that I made were quite high quality. However, the company paid really, really badly. Yeah, I could just afford my rent, not even food. I also started doing modeling jobs, and that was good because I got some extra cash. And I also got insight into filmmaking. Was the first time on a big film set, which I found quite interesting. However, I was feeling a little bit lonely because if you start working in a company, you're not in university anymore. In university, you meet a lot of people and you quickly make friends, but at work, there's not so many people who are your age. So I felt a bit lonely in the first few months. That's why I went to a university nearby and I hang up a paper to look for language exchange partners. Hey, my name is Melina. I have this and that hobbies. I can teach you English or German, and in return you teach me Chinese, and we can meet up once per week. So I had 4 people responding and I stick to 3 of them. My internship is over, but I really liked staying in Taiwan because I very much enjoyed my time over there, and I had a visa for an entire year, a work and travel visa. So why not staying longer? First, I went to a private school to learn Chinese, but all my other classmates, they weren't really that interested to learn Chinese, and it was really expensive. So I quickly changed after a few weeks, and then I went to university. I attended a course from the Mandarin Training Center of the National Taiwan Normal University, which was excellent. You have daily vocabulary tests. You have every week you have a grammar test, and after 3 months there's a major examination. And that gives you this pressure that you need to practice Chinese regularly. So I would learn 30 new characters every single day, also writing them, reading, writing, and also knowing how to use them. And my God, and my Chinese skyrocketed, because by that time I had been starting and stopping practicing Chinese so many times that they basically put me in a very beginner class, and I was so unhappy about that at the beginning, but it was the right choice because I literally started at 0 again at 你好，我很好. We also had creative workshops in university. For example, I joined the Chinese literature class. I also did a calligraphy class a couple of weeks, and I found out I don't really have that much talent for calligraphy, but never mind, it was still fun. I had now 2 good friends from work, but I also met a lot of really nice people through the website meetup.com. It's basically a website where you can sign up, for example, for sports classes or for activities. So usually half of the people who attend these events are expats and the other half are locals. So for example, I went playing soccer. I don't even like playing soccer, but somebody invited me. It still was fun. And then I also went to a book club, the feminist book club, which basically meant that we met every month and we read a book about a historic figure, for example, mostly a woman. That's why it was called feminist book club. And then we would discuss their life or their career or something else. It's good on one side and bad on the other. People in Taipei can speak pretty well English. That basically meant that I spoke a lot of English while I was living in Taiwan. Qingdao and Guiyang, I was forced to speak Chinese because most of the time I couldn't find somebody who would be able to explain me something in English. So that really helped me to lose that fear of speaking Chinese and just go for it. While still being in Taiwan, I come across an article about this American guy who studied in Beijing at a film university. And the whole course was a 1-year course, which was taught completely in Chinese. I'm like, wow, I want to do that as well. I actually get accepted to the Beijing Film Academy, but there's still a couple of months left that I want to use practicing Chinese characters. And I wanted to move to Beijing to be able to study simplified characters, because by that time I could only read traditional Chinese characters. Okay, so I go to the Beijing Language and Culture University to do a similar course as before. I made 3 really big mistakes. So my first half year in Beijing, it was damn tough and I didn't like it at all. And I think it's really good to say that here because people always say like, oh, so much fun to learn a new language. But no, it's not always fun. It's actually really tough sometimes, especially if you live by yourself without any friends every like 1.5 years in a new place. My first mistake. When starting at the new university, there are a few teachers who are going to test you and then they're going to put you in different classes according to your level. And I told those teachers I can't read the characters because firstly I'm used to traditional characters, so it's maybe just because of that my test result weren't really good. And then secondly, in Taipei, I had the feeling that they put me in a too low class. At this time in Beijing, I thought, oh, I'm just going to tell them that my Chinese is way better than it is. And then it turned out that they actually put me in a really high class, even though they told me this may be too difficult for you. I should have listened to them. I was the loser in class. Studying Chinese wasn't that much fun anymore if you have every day you have the feeling that you're not doing very well. My second mistake was that I didn't move to the international student dormitory. So I wanted to be surrounded only by Chinese native speakers, and that's why I thought, well, I'm going to get a shared flat just next to the campus, which was kind of like a good idea, but at the same time it wasn't. I paid a hell of a lot of money to an agency to help me find a flat. In Germany, usually when you go for a shared flat, it's more about that whole living experience and you become this small little family if you're lucky, and you're doing a lot of stuff together like cooking, shopping, going out. In big cities like Beijing, a lot of people live in shared flats simply because they want to save money. The people who shared the upper floor with me, they just said hello to me and that's it. Then they just shut their door and like, okay, nobody to talk to. It was freaking dirty, that flat. The bathroom probably wasn't cleaned for like 3-4 months. It was super disgusting, and the kitchen was even worse. And then my room, it had that super uncomfortable bed, and it had such a tiny window which was somewhere in the corner, so I had hardly any light in my room. I absolutely disliked living there. If I would come home, I would just like be by myself in a dark room and I would be not motivated to study. So I think over this like language course experience in Beijing, I wasted a lot of time and money not being able to study effectively, because there was just, I mean, at the end we're not a machine, we are a human, and it's not always possible to be like super efficient, right? There's of course also nice things that happened to me while I was living in Beijing. One of the things was that there was a girl who stopped me on campus who asked me, hey, I would like to improve my English, would you like to improve your Chinese? And she actually became one of my best friends. She even lived next to me, just next to my building. A few weeks later, I meet another girl. I was talking in German to another German on the campus, and she hears it and she's like, hey, I'm studying German, it's my major. We chit chat, and then I ask her, hey, where can I do some sports over here? And then she said, hey, do you want to join me now for Kung Fu practice? So I just joined her, like very spontaneously, and that's how we got closer, because we always went to the same Kung Fu training every week. Mistake number 3. I think it's good to mention, but I don't want to get too personal over here. So I started going out with a local. And at the beginning, it wasn't so clear to me that this person was only dating me because I was a foreigner, especially somebody from a Western country. Because I think in China, if a Chinese person goes out with a Western person, they are going to receive a lot of attention. Like if I walk around in the street in Beijing, maybe every 10th person looks at me because I'm just looking very different, right? Out of curiosity. But if you walk together and you're kind of like holding hands, then every second person, maybe every person is going to stare at you or like gives you this like side glance. If you find out that somebody is not dating you because of your personality, but because of all the economical advantages and the status that comes with dating a foreigner, or then you're kind of upset, These 3 facts, that I was a loser in class, I was living in a dirty, dark and expensive place, and that I was going out with the wrong person, made me kind of upset. And now the worst part is that I failed my HSK5 exam, and I had prepared for this exam for such a long time. I knew it's going to be really hard for me because I wasn't really studying Chinese for that long. I mean, I was only studying for 15 or 16 months since I started my beginner's course in Taiwan, because I stopped too many times and started all over again. I needed a break. So I went back home to Germany, chilled out a couple of weeks in my parents' place, and then I came back to Beijing and things became so much better. I'm finally in 100% Chinese speaking environment. All my classmates are super friendly, my teachers are really nice. I really like the course. We have drama classes, kung fu classes, singing classes, dancing classes, and Taizike, which is a class where you have to do tongue twists in Chinese, and the level is on a native speaker level. Studying at the Beijing Film Academy and being the only foreigner of non-Chinese origin in class was fun, and it was also difficult. I think my Chinese actually wasn't good enough to follow a lot of the lectures, but still I understood more and more by every week. The only downside is that this course is not cheap, and I was also living off campus. The course cost like $6,000 or $7,000 for the entire year. So by that time I didn't have a lot of savings anymore. I also only had a student visa for 1 year where you're not allowed to work. So things are getting a little bit expensive, and I have to ask my parents for a lot of help. I found a flat together with a classmate, and that's the first time I actually lived together with a Chinese person who I really like. One day I meet a film production company, and they tell me there's actually a quite high demand for foreigners in Chinese movies and TV shows, because Chinese people really like to listen to foreigners speaking freestyle Zhongwen. They also suggest that I start doing social media. So I started making videos for Douyin, which is the equivalent to TikTok in China. Then the pandemic starts. I'm on holidays in Germany, and suddenly my Chinese visa is not valid anymore. That is when I took social media more seriously. So when I wasn't at work, I made these short videos about my life in Germany, which was kind of boring because it was the pandemic. And people really liked it. So now I have 800,000 followers on Chinese social media, and I hope I can return back to China this year to further improve my Chinese and to take full advantage of the opportunity that comes with living in the country. And I hope I can make a positive contribution towards cultural exchange between Germany and China. I hope you could learn something from this video, and I hope I could inspire you in some ways to try some of the things that I have probably done. And it was also particularly important for me that I'm not just going to show you the bright, beautiful side of learning a language, because there's lots of these videos on YouTube like become fluent in 6 months in Chinese. I'm like, no, this doesn't work. You need a lot of years to become fluent in Chinese. If you put enough time into it and if you're motivated enough, then you will be able to learn Chinese or any other foreign language. So good luck.